Well, hi there. So in this video, we're going to look at the first free response prep question for Unit 4. So we're in market structures, and this is just the same as AP Microeconomics question number 1 from 2022. And I'll just say that if you ever want to take a look at the scoring guidelines, that's the answer key for these questions. And it'll actually just walk you through exactly what these graphs and everything are supposed to look like. But I'm going to walk you through how to solve the problem. Again, if you just want to see what the answers are, you can obviously just Google search AP Micro 2022 number 1 scoring guidelines, and it'll be a PDF. You can easily find it. A firm has a patent on a new carbon capture technology, making it the only producer of the device. Firms earning a positive profit earn producing profit-maximizing output. Draw a correctly labeled graph, show the following. QM for the quantity, price is PM, and the area representing surplus for the consumers shaded completely. So if we know that it's got a patent on a particular product, we know that that's an artificial monopoly. So we're going to start with A, and then we're going to draw down nice and big. We don't want to do very small graphs. Quantity and price. And then we're going to put that demand curve here. And that demand curve tells us kind of the price that they're going to charge. And they have a separated marginal revenue curve. Because they're an artificial monopoly, they're going to have an upward sloping marginal cost curve. And then it did tell us that they're producing in a profit. And before we go that far, we just know that profit maximization occurs at the quantity where MR equals MC. We're making sure that we're using the labels QM, the quantity that they produce, and the price, PM. Remember, they price upon that demand curve. Now, we do need to show that they're earning an economic profit. So we're going to put down and then an ATC that comes back up again. Now, they don't say that we need to actually identify any of the profit or anything along those lines. We just need to label PM and QM and then shade consumer surplus. Well, we know that consumer surplus is from the price that's actually being paid up to the demand curve. So we're going to outline that and do a little bit of shading right there. And then just for good measure, I'm going to put a little arrow and I'm going to write A1, or sorry, A3. And that gives my kind of grader an idea that I know what I'm talking about here. This is supposed to be the area A3. Now, part B says the government is considering different options to regulate the firm. Suppose the government's considering taxing it. Could a per unit tax make its output go to the socially optimal quantity? Explain. And so this is the socially optimal quantity here, where demand equals marginal cost. If we were to put in a per unit tax, it's going to cause marginal cost to shift up, and it would actually reduce the quantity of transactions because the new intercept of MR equals MC would be at a higher value along that MR curve than where we are, because marginal cost would shift up. And so this new intercept would just move somewhere farther up the line. So we would say that no, it actually reduces the quantity. It doesn't increase it. So we're going to put B1, no, because quantity would decrease with a per unit tax. And socially, and I'm just going to kind of define this, socially optimal quantity is at demand equals marginal cost. And so that way I'm kind of telling my grader, I do know that the socially optimal quantity is here at demand equals marginal cost, and QM is a smaller value than that. And so moving the decrease away from that, the quantity would actually make the problem worse. Let's see, B2. Instead, suppose the government imposes a price ceiling on the firm at the quantity. On your graph in part A, so that they produce that quantity. On the graph, label the quantity and price after the price ceiling as QC and PC. What they're really doing here is testing, do you know where that point is? And so they would put this little dashed line across. That would be the price ceiling would be here. And then the number of units they produce would be here. And I'm just going to put a little arrow, and that's going to be QC. And I'm doing that so that they know that I'm aware that marginal revenue isn't necessarily corresponding to that point. Again, sometimes your marginal revenue is going to be right there, but you want to make sure that you're clear that the intercept of marginal cost and demand is actually where that quantity is going to be. Now it says, at the price and quantity identified in B2 is the firm earning positive economic profit explained. Now this actually depends on how you've drawn your graph a little bit. You can draw your graph in different ways with this problem, but it should be drawn that looks pretty much like this. Now at PC, if you go down at that quantity QC from PC, you go down, you can find that average cost is actually a little bit less. And so we've gone ahead and done B2, But what we'd find is that because the price ceiling price is above the average cost at QC, the firm's earning a profit. So we're going to say, yes, profit. And our explanation is going to be because PC is greater than ATC at QC. And so I'm really just saying that at this quantity C, the price ceiling is above what the average cost is. And so if we had a profit rectangle, it would be really long and skinny, just long, skinny one that's tiny in terms of a short little height, but it would still be there, right? Now C, assume the government decides not to regulate the firm, and instead the firm produces the quantity of output that maximizes revenue. I don't know why the firm would do that. Of course, they're profit maximizing. That's not my question. The question just says that they choose to do it. If the firm now increases its output by 1 unit, so in other words, beyond this maximum total revenue, would marginal revenue be positive, negative, or zero? Explain. And so it requires you to understand that the point where total revenue is maximized is right here, where MR crosses that x-axis. That's the TR maximizing spot. And so any units past that are units where marginal revenue is negative. So we're going to answer and say C1, negative. And we have to give some kind of an explanation about it. And so I'm going to say because TR max is at the quantity at MR equals 0. And so we can kind of make reference to this notion right here. And actually annotating on the graph is good because it allows us to say, like, in this range, TR is kind of rising, and it's rising up to its maximum level. And then past that point of quantity, the TR is falling. Now let's take a look at C2. Starting at that total revenue maximizing quantity, if the firm reduced the price by 10%, would quantity demanded go up by less than 10, more than 10, or exactly 10? And this is asking you to remember about elasticity. So if we remember, the TR max is also the unit elastic point, and all the points past it are the inelastic range. So this range at the top of the demand curve, these quantities, are the elastic quantities, all the way up to here where it's the unit elastic point on that demand curve. And everything past that point's inelastic. And it's saying if price goes up, reduces, right? If price goes down 10%, that means we're going to move down the demand curve, right? Down the demand curve into the inelastic range. Then the inelastic range. So we can say that quantity would actually increase by, hang on, I'm thinking, yep, by less than 10%. And the idea here is that because it's the inelastic range, the quantity and the price are not very responsive, right? Especially the quantity is not very responsive to the change in the price. When we say that something's inelastic demand, we would say that a change in price does not produce a very large change in the quantity. And so rephrasing that, we're just saying if the price goes down by 10%, now we're entering into this inelastic range because we're crossing down that demand point. That means the quantity is going to go up by less than 10%. If we were in the elastic range, it would be by larger than 10%. So hopefully this helped you understand a little bit about AP Micro question number 1, 2022. I'll see you next time.